Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our October onX Hunt 101 Masterclass. We'll get going in just a minute or two here while we're waiting for everybody to get logged in and situated. Just a couple of housekeeping items. So first off, your audio and video are turned off. We can't see or hear you. Nobody else can either. So no worries if you got kids or dogs or something in the background. If you do have questions, we have a couple members of our support team answering questions in the Q&A box. So drop your questions in there. There is also a chat box. That is not the place for questions. They can just get lost in there. Chat is great for just letting us know where you're tuning in from, who you are, things like that. If you have a question you'd like us to answer live, use the Q&A box there. This class is being recorded, so if you have to leave early and you want to go rewatch the portion you missed, or you want to just view something again at a later date, we will be recording this and it will be emailed to you tomorrow evening. You'll get an email with the link to the YouTube video because we load all of our onX Hunt Masterclasses to our YouTube page. So if you are interested in learning about more specific topics, we have, I think I just looked today, like 140 videos on the onX Hunt Masterclass playlist on the onX Hunt YouTube channel. So chances are, if there's a hunting topic you're interested in, we very likely have a class on it, whether it be various different upland bird hunting classes, elk, whitetail, mule deer, waterfowl, you name it. We've got a lot of them up there, so check that out. And finally, we are doing a giveaway at the end of the class. We're going to give away some Blaze Orange onX Hunt hats to 10 lucky winners, but you do have to be present in this class to enter that giveaway, and we will post that link again, like I said, towards the end of the class here. All right, looks like we got some folks in and situated, so let's go over the agenda for the evening. We're going to start off talking about the different membership options within the onX Hunt app and how each one differs and what each one gets you. Then we'll really jump into the app. The reason most of you are here, we'll talk about using different map layers, how that whole system works. We'll go over using the app offline by utilizing offline maps. We'll talk about waypoints and tracker and some of the other map tools available to you. We'll show you how to utilize the compass mode, which is one of my favorite features of the app. Then we'll jump over to the onX web map on the computer. We'll talk about some of the different base map and imagery options, how to do a search, whether it's for coordinates or for a person's name or an address. And then at the end, we'll save some time for some live Q&A and that giveaway as well. So to start off, your different membership options for the onX Hunt app. You've got a premium membership. I should back up. You've got a basic membership, then you've got a premium membership and an elite membership. And within those, there's some other categories as well. So the basic membership is a free membership. If you are basic, it means you maybe started a trial, but then never purchased a premium or elite membership afterwards. Or maybe you had premium or elite and it expired. A basic membership basically just gets you aerial imagery. It's a pretty basic experience. I know I'm saying basic a lot. But you're not able to turn on any of the land ownership information. You're not really able to save offline maps or do any of those things. So that's nuts and bolts what a basic membership is. To get access to the different features of the app, you want to upgrade to a premium or an elite membership. Now, what's the difference between those? So a premium membership kind of comes in two flavors. You have a premium 1-state membership or a premium 2-state membership. Sounds just like what it is. A premium 1-state gets you map layers, that land ownership data for one state. Also lets you save offline maps, mark waypoints, use the compass mode, track yourself, okay, those kinds of things. Premium 2-state gets you access to 2 states. So that was something we created in response to folks who maybe live on the border of Iowa and Missouri and hunt both of them, for example. Or somebody who's like, hey, I live in Maryland, but I drive out to Colorado to elk hunt every year, and those are the only 2 states I hunt. So if that's you, if you're a person who primarily just hunts 2 states, that premium 2 state's a great option. Now the elite membership is kind of our full spectrum membership. So it gets you access to all 50 states, the data for all 50 states in those map layers, and Canada, but it also gets you access to a bunch of really cool elite tools. So things like our route builder, our hunt research tools, some different imagery options, which we'll take a look at later. And an elite membership also gets you a bunch of discounts on brands that we've partnered with. So Schnee's hunting boots, Vortex optics, various different tree stands, elk calls, turkey calls. We've got different optics in there, access to Hunt and Fool for application season type research. There's a whole bunch of them on there. I'm forgetting a whole lot of them. First Light, Mossy Oak. So if you're a person who buys hunting gear, you can pretty easily make up the cost of your elite membership by checking out some of those deals. All right, so enough on that. Let's get into the map here. So I'm going to pull it up on my tablet. So if you are able, if you're watching me on a computer right now and you're able to pull up a mobile device, that's something I do highly recommend so that you can follow along. That's a great way to learn, to follow along with me as I go through this. I understand a lot of people are probably watching on a mobile device. Isn't going to work for you, but for those of you that do have the option, something I recommend. So this is the onX Hunt app. You can see I'm located in Midtown, Missoula, Montana. I've got that blue dot in the center that's telling me where I am. If you're not seeing a blue dot on your side, if you're just seeing a map, that just means the map's not centered on your location. To get to your location, in the lower right-hand corner, there's a button that looks kind of like a crosshair, or I've heard it described as a wagon wheel. If I tap on that button, again, lower right-hand corner, that's going to bring me back to my location. So that is how you center the map on where you are. So let's get into map layers. Map layers are kind of the heart and soul of the onX system. That's how you can customize your map to give it the information, to give you the information that you're looking for. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here so that you can see some differences. I'm going to tap on map layers. That's in the lower left-hand corner of my screen. There's a button that says Hunt Map Layers. Again, I'll tap on that. That opens up my map layers menu. Right now in here, I have a handful of states turned on. Tennessee, South Dakota, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, Montana, Minnesota. You may only be showing one or two states. You may be showing different states than me. That's all fine, depending on what membership level you have. If you have an elite membership, you've got access to all 50 states, but one of the questions we sometimes get is, why aren't they all turned on? Where are they? They will be down below. If you just scroll down, I can see the states I have turned on. And actually right now, I'm going to turn some of these off just to make things a little bit easier, make things a little more streamlined. But this is the area where you can turn states on and off. And Canada's in this collection as well. So they're all just listed alphabetically. If I wanted to turn on Wyoming, I scroll down to the bottom, tap on the slider, and that's going to turn it on for me. So from there, all of your map layers are grouped into collections, or sometimes people call them folders. So for Montana, I've got a folder here. When I tap on it, it shows me the different layers that are available to me in here. So 3 layers are going to be turned on by default: private lands, government lands, and hunting districts. That's going to ring true across almost all states. I believe Indiana might be the only state that doesn't have like hunting districts, at least in the sense that other states do. It's either Indiana or Illinois. Somebody might correct me on that. Those will be turned on by default. If I turn them off, it's going to turn off the private lands layer here, and watch my map, you'll see the difference. So I can see when I turn it off, those orange lines and the landowner names go away. So that's a question we get is, I lost all my landowner names, what's going on? Assuming your membership is still active, like it didn't expire or anything, and you're logged in with the correct credentials, most of the time it just means that layer got turned off and you just got to turn it back on. So that's private lands layer. That's what it looks like. If I go a little bit east of town here, you'll see the map looks a little bit different. It's got some coloration on it. Now that's going to be our public or government lands. So if I toggle that on and off, you can see the change there as well. Now government lands are color coded based on what type of land they are. Is it city land, county land, Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, military installations, state land. It's all kinds of different designations. And so you can kind of zoom in. If I zoom in on this blue box, it says State of Montana on it. But on this green, I'm not really able to see what is that, right? There's no label standing out to me. The best way to learn more about something on your map, about information on your map, is to tap on the map in that area. So I'm just going to tap somewhere in the green, and that's going to bring up a query card, it's called. This little white menu down along the bottom of my screen. The first thing that it's going to show is what type of land that is. In this case, Lolo National Forest. If I scroll down, it gives me a little bit more information. Lolo National Forest, Missoula, this many acres in this area, or in this parcel. Same thing for here. Excuse me. If I tap on the blue, it tells me State of Montana, so that's state land. Here's some yellow. I know that's BLM. So the more you do it, I've been using onX for 7 years or so now. It's just kind of, I know what they mean, right? Once you use it enough, within a few months, you get to know this is state, this is federal, this is state, this is Forest Service, this is BLM, this is county, etc. You can also query private lands if you want to learn more information about them. So again, I just tap on a parcel that I want to learn more about. This is the office at onX. Tells me the owner, tells me the tax address, tells me the county and the acreage. So we're going to tell you who owns a piece of land, whether it's, Jim Smith or whether it's, Point 6 LLC or some other LLC, right? Or a different corporation. And then we're going to give you the tax address. Now the tax address is not necessarily the street address for that parcel. I often use the example of, a 320 acre field, a half section field somewhere. That's not where the person gets their mail, right? They don't live at that parcel. So the tax address is where they get their mail delivered. So that's useful if you want to try to get in contact with a landowner, maybe asking for hunting permission or something, where you could send them a letter, or you could use the owner name and the tax address, look in the white pages, do a Google search, try to track down who the owner is there. We often get asked about phone numbers in the app. We do not include phone numbers, mostly out of respect for landowners. You can imagine, we're sitting here, it's October 23rd right now. If I was a landowner in great whitetail country, or maybe I had a bunch of pheasants on my land, you can imagine how many phone calls I might get from people who are driving by and pull up onX and start giving me a call. So we don't include phone numbers on there, and in 2024, it's a little bit harder to nail down good phone numbers for people with landlines becoming less and less of a thing as well. So the data that is out there isn't super reliable. But I just wanted to mention that. It's a question that comes up pretty often of, no, we don't include phone numbers, and largely out of respect for landowners, so that their phone's just not ringing off the hook for the fall months. All right, let's dive back into layers here. There's a couple more I want to talk about in my Montana folder. The hunting districts one is a super important one, and one we hear about quite a bit. If I zoom out, you'll see these green lines all over my map. Now those are the Montana deer and elk districts. I have something caught in my throat. I'm gonna take a drink of water. Apologies, folks. Now, every state calls these something different. Montana, they're hunting districts. Your state, they might be game management units, deer permit areas, hunting zones, hunting areas. All means the same thing, right? It's how the state fish and game agency breaks up the state to know, how deer populations or elk populations are doing in certain areas and kind of know what the harvest is going to be and maybe restrict hunter numbers and things like that. So the reason I bring this up is we do get quite a few calls. It's certain states. Wyoming's the one at the top of my mind. We often get calls from people because they're looking at a map, maybe in their paper fish and game regulations booklet or somewhere else online, and it's not matching up with what we have. A lot of states will have different units for different species. For example, a couple weeks ago, I was out antelope hunting, eastern Montana, so I turned on my antelope units. If I go back to my map, you see there's not any green lines in the northwestern part of the state because there's no antelope hunting here, because there's no antelope, right? So when I go in here, see if I can do this. If you watch my map, if I tap deer elk hunt districts, those numbers change. So Wyoming does this. They have different ones for deer, different ones for elk, different ones for antelope, bighorn sheep, bison, all that, right? So double check and make sure that you have the correct, we call these sub-layers, all these different districts. Make sure you have the correct sub-layers selected. In most states, it's going to be the deer units, or it's going to be, some states where they don't break it out as much, where it's just big game units or game management units. That's going to be chosen by default. We try to do the one that is kind of the most popular in that state. So a lot of states, it's going to be the deer one, or if they have a kind of one for everything, that's what's going to be selected. But double check that before you go out. One other layer, again, we're not going to be able to go into all of these layers. We would be here all night and probably into tomorrow if we went through all of them. But I want to talk about the Montana block management area layer. Block management is our walk-in access program in Montana. In your state, it's called something else. And most states at this point have a program similar to this. I think it's like 30 some states now have a form of public hunting on private land program. So in Montana, it's called block management. In North Dakota, it's private land open to sportsmen. There's a couple states that call it access yes. Kansas calls it walk-in hunter access. Okay, everyone calls it something different. But basically, it's private land that a landowner will open up to allow public access for hunting on. They may have some restrictions where it's only foot travel, no motorized vehicles. They may have, you can only hunt certain species, or, you're not allowed to hunt on certain days. But it's a pretty good opportunity that opens up a lot of land and a lot of good land. A lot of times it's good farmland, and there's a lot of species that really enjoy a good alfalfa or cornfield, right? So that's a layer. Double check it in your state. Again, not every state has this. You might not have a comparable layer where you are. But if I tap on, here's a BMA here. It's that black outline with red dots in it. That's what denotes a walk-in or a block management area. If I tap on it, it tells me, who the owner is. And then if I scroll down to the block management area section, it tells me the name of it, how long it's open to, and then this area info. That's something else I wanted to call out. There's a handful of layers where we will link you to the state agency, or in the case of like Fish and Wildlife Service for refuges, the federal agency, for more information. So if I want to learn more about this block management area, I'm going to tap that little link under area info. It's going to bring me to Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks website, and it will tell me, here's areas you can park. Here's how many people are allowed at a time to hunt this. These are the species you're likely to find. These are the species it's legal to hunt. These are, the restrictions, areas where you can't hunt, things like that. So always tap on something on the map is kind of the moral of the story. There's a lot of information within this card that can be very helpful to you. Couple other layers I just want to mention quickly. So below your state or states, there are some nationwide folders. So current conditions, land and access, roads, trails and rec, trees, crops and soil, and wildlife layers. So these are all nationwide. With any level of paid membership, you get access to these. So a question we commonly get is, here's the scenario. I have a premium membership. I have it for Missouri, and I'm looking for wildfire information. I know there's a wildfire near me, but I can't find it under Missouri. That wildfire layer is not a state layer, it's nationwide. So that one lives in current conditions. You see my active wildfire layers turned on right now. If I zoom out, this is what that layer looks like. So even if you only have one state, you can see these fires everywhere. So even if your membership is from Missouri, you can see where the fires are in Oregon, for example. And again, just tapping on it gives me more information, gives me the name of the fire. It tells me when we, as an onX, last checked for more information on the fire. So we check today. We will check multiple times a day, the managing agencies, their data, to see if there's been a change in this fire. And then we'll also tell you when the source last updated. So in this case, it's probably the Forest Service that is responding to this fire because it's on Forest Service land. We checked today and there was an update today. You can see that from the source updated, so you know the data's as current as possible. Gives you the acreage, gives you what percentage it is contained, and then gives you a little bit more information. Yep, the U.S. Forest Service is running the incident management on this. So if I go back into my layers, there's a whole bunch of them here in current conditions. Active wildfire is my most used, but we have info on smoke, droughts, CWD. Again, these are available to you whether you have a nationwide membership or not. Land and access is similar. Wilderness areas I always have turned on. That's your federally designated wilderness. So things like the Boundary Waters, the Bob Marshall, the Gila, stuff like that. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hunt areas, that's going to show you refuges, and it'll show you where those refuges is, I can't talk today, where they may allow hunting and where it's restricted and what type of hunting is allowed. So here's a refuge that's south of Missoula here, and they've kind of got it broken out into no hunting areas, they've got a waterfowl area, and they've got a whitetail archery area. So take a look at some of these different folders. The last one I want to mention is roads, trails, and rec. So your trails, that's going to be trails of all different sorts, but primarily hiking, horseback, a lot of non-motorized trails. You can see I have them. This is Mount Sentinel in Missoula, pretty popular hiking area, a lot of trails on it. You can see those different colored lines there. Those lines are different colors because I have the trail slope layer turned on. If I turn it off, you see they go black and white. That's going to tell you how steep an area or a trail is, from red being the steepest to green being the flattest, and kind of that gradient down. Another one I think you should have turned on, especially if you're in an area where there's Forest Service managed land. So we're talking national forests and national grasslands. This motorized roads and trails layer near the bottom, that's going to show me where I can drive my truck or ATV or dirt bike. Now it's going to depend a little bit on your area and your state, but these purple and white roads are what I'm talking about here. It really shows me where those more maintained roads are. You can see there's a lot of different lines going through this area, but not all of them are purple. There was a lot of, it's western Montana, there was and still is a lot of logging that goes on. So a lot of these roads were punched in when they were doing a timber harvest, but then haven't been maintained since. So some of these, like the white dotted line roads, Some of them are still pretty good. Some of them have, 15-foot tall spruce trees growing out of them because once they were done logging, maintenance stopped. These purple roads are more maintained. And if you want to learn more about them, again, tap on the map. I'm gonna tap on this Allen Creek Road here. Scroll down a bit. It's going to give me the name of the road on the bottom, the road ID number, how long that segment of road is, and what's really important, in my opinion, is the accessible by and the open dates. So open dates, a lot of times they will close down roads seasonally, either for, a lot of times they'll close them during the winter and spring just to provide sanctuary for animals. They're not being, motorized vehicles affect big game animals, especially elk. There's a lot of research on kind of how detrimental that kind of disturbance can be, especially when they're doing their calving in the spring. So in Montana, we shut down a lot of our roads until, the middle of May or middle of June. And we have a lot of them that will close down this time of year. We close a segment in September before archery season. We close another segment right before our rifle season, which starts this Saturday. And then we have some that close down the day after rifle season until the spring. So don't make the mistake of thinking a road is open and driving out there and coming to a closed gate. I've done that before. Always click on the road to see the open and close dates. This one here is open year round. Then double check, what is it accessible by? So there might be a road with a width restriction. There might be some that are just dirt bike trails or just ATV trails, and even like a wider side-by-side isn't permissible on it. So you want to double check that. This one here says overland. That's going to be your, like your passenger car. Now, I'm probably not taking a super low riding, passenger car on there, but I have seen folks in, Pontiac Grand Ams and Honda Civics on some of these roads. But the overland designation is typically going to be, if you've got a pickup truck, an SUV, something like that, you're probably going to be okay. If it starts with high clearance 4x4, now that's going to be a little bit rougher. That might be the case where you want kind of a dedicated off-roading Jeep 4Runner, Toyota Tacoma, something like that with a little bit more capable than just your standard passenger car. So double check that before you go out so that you're not, drive out somewhere and realize the road's not really right for your vehicle, and make sure the road's open and isn't gated and closed seasonally as well. All right, so there's a bunch of other layers in here. Again, we're already about a half hour in, so we're gonna move on. But my recommendation is go through these layers, turn them on, turn them off, see if they're useful to you. There's a whole lot of layers in here, like the trees, crops, and soil. I use those a lot for scouting. I don't necessarily use them a lot in the field. So each layer kind of has its own purpose. There are layers like private lands and government lands that I never turn off because I'm always going to want that information, right? But something like current conditions, I might look at drought data for a bit and then turn it off. There's some layers you might never use. That's the beauty. You can kind of customize this to make it what you want. And there's nothing you can do to break this. That's something I sometimes run into when I'm talking to customers, is kind of a hesitancy of, I don't want to press the wrong button. I don't want to wreck anything. There's nothing you can do to wreck anything. There's nothing you can turn on that can't be turned off, and vice versa. So the more time you spend in the app, the more comfortable you're going to be. That's my biggest recommendation. It's just like if you buy a new shotgun or a new bow, you're going to want to spend time practicing with it and shooting with it. Same thing with onX. You don't want to pull it out for the first time the morning of your hunt. Our whole goal is to help you be more efficient when you're out in the field. And if you're trying to teach yourself how to use the app, you're not going to be as efficient. You're not going to enjoy your time as much. So you're already taking the right step by joining this class. So I'm probably preaching to the choir a little bit here. Let's move on and let's talk about offline maps. So one of the other top questions we get is, how do I use this when I don't have cell service? So I'm just going to zoom out here. I'm just going to go to a random spot in Wyoming. And let's say that this is the area I want to hunt. A lot of public land, Maybe that's a spot I'm interested in and I've got a tag there. So in the lower left-hand corner below the map layers button, there's a button that says offline maps. Farthest bottom left, I'm going to tap on that. And it's going to bring up a menu, it says offline maps, and then there's an orange button that says new map, and below that I have a bunch of previously saved maps. If you don't have a list that looks like mine with previously saved maps, that's fine. No big deal. We're going to talk you through how to build a list like that. So I'm going to get the map basically centered on the area I'm interested in. Then I'm going to tap new map. Now I have an orange or kind of red box on my map, and whatever is within that box is what is going to be saved. So I can still zoom out a little bit. These maps are limited in size. So this medium resolution map on my device is about 80 miles by 113 miles. Every device is going to be a little bit different, just depends on the dimensions of your screen. I'm on a pretty big iPad here. Your phone might be slightly different. Don't worry if it is. So from there, let me get it. Ooh, just accidentally closed out. Let me get back where I wanted to go. Apologies, folks. Let me go back into a new map. And let's say this is the area I want to hunt. I've got it basically lined up. I can pull up on this menu just with my finger. I just pulled that up. I do recommend naming your maps. Once you have a bunch of them saved, you're going to want to have custom names so you know where you have them saved. I'm just going to name this one Wyoming. It's the only one I have in Wyoming right now. In real life, I name mine typically after either a hunting unit or like a nearby town or maybe valley. Like I have a Bitterroot Valley one that's just south of us here in Missoula. I have one for unit, ABC, whatever. Whatever makes sense to you is great. There's no real right or wrong. The only wrong way is just leaving the generic names in there. So I'm gonna name this one Wyoming and hit save. Tells me this is a large map. Yep, that's fine. And now it's going to start downloading. You see that one down below is starting to download. I can save multiple maps. Let's say I want a bigger area. So I've got my previous map saved. You can kind of see the green boundary box showing me where that map was saved. So let's say I want to go a little bit west still. I'm going to line my second map up. I'm going to name it Wyoming 2 and hit save. So now I've got a much larger area saved there. Okay, I do this all the time where I have a medium or a high resolution map and I stitch them or quilt them together and make that grid pattern. So I've got a much larger area. Mentioned I was pronghorn hunting a couple weeks ago. That's exactly what I did. Pronghorn hunting a lot of times involves a lot of driving around to find where they are. So I saved, my tag was good for a couple different units. I saved multiple different maps so that I was covering all of those units. You can choose different sizes of maps as well. So I'm just going to get to a new area. Let's go eastern Wyoming here. And I can go for a low resolution map. You can see this one is pretty darn big. So the low resolution map is great for, I think of it as a backup. I will save low resolution maps on my personal device and basically cover the whole state of Montana. That way, if I ever find myself in an area I didn't plan to be in, meaning I didn't save one of those smaller maps, at least I still have something. So these low detail or low resolution maps are much bigger. The trade-off is you're losing aerial imagery resolution. You're still getting all your layers. So I'm still able to see hunting districts. I'm still able to see public and private, the different roads and trails and recreation sites and things. But the imagery is going to be kind of fuzzy when I zoom in. So that's why I use it as a backup. Primarily, I'm using these medium ones, 9 times out of 10, for Montana, Western hunting, that's what I use most of the time. Upland bird hunting, I use it because it involves a lot of driving to different covers sometimes. And it does give you pretty good imagery resolution. I just closed out again. Sorry about that, folks. But let's show you what a small one looks like, or a high resolution. So the high resolution is going to be your smallest map, and it's going to give you the best imagery resolution. So I use these. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to drive home to Minnesota, where I grew up. We deer hunt in northern part of the state. We have a deer camp there. We're pretty much just hunting within a couple miles. And so we've got deer stands set. We're not going to be driving all over like I am when I'm pheasant hunting or pronghorn hunting. So I don't need a big map. So I do save the small ones in that instance. I've never had it where I've had a medium map and thought, man, if I would have had the high resolution, I would have killed that buck or killed that bull or something. The imagery resolution isn't that big of a difference, but if you are a person who likes to have the most high resolution imagery possible, you're going to want to choose those smaller maps. And if you need a bigger area, do what I did earlier and, stitch them or quilt them together. I'm going to not save this map and show you a couple other things in here. So some of these maps that I've saved previously say update available. What that means is some data has changed in that area since the map was saved or since it was last updated. You don't have to update your maps every time you see there's an update available. Some states like Montana, you'll see that every day because we're able to update land ownership information in Montana every day. Every state's a little bit different in how often they update the data on their side. So your state, you might not have updates available as often. If you do, it's a good idea to update them when you can. Just don't feel like you have to do it every time. If you're driving out Saturday morning, you're going out hunting, and you see, oh shoot, update available. I've got to find a coffee shop and get Wi-Fi to update this. Just go hunting. Don't worry about it. If you update at the beginning of hunting season, you're probably going to be okay for quite a while. I personally update once a week, but it's because I work at onX Maps and I can sit there at my desk and just run that update. So what does that look like to update? You can just tap on the green circle with the check mark. I'm going to tap the one that says Northwest Montana, and that will queue up that download. I'm downloading some other maps, those ones I just did in Wyoming. So once those finish, then this one will update. You can also do them all at once by going to the top right corner of this menu, tap on the three dots, and tap the button that says Update All Maps, and it'll just queue them up for you. Set your phone down, walk away, watch TV or something, and just let those chug away and update your maps. It'll take a few minutes depending on how many maps you have saved. A couple other things I wanted to point out. I'm going to go to this Iowa map. So you notice the Iowa map doesn't have a green check mark next to it. When I tap on it and it brings the map to that location in Iowa, you see it doesn't have a green box around it. It has a red and white box around it. That means that that map is not downloaded onto this device. If I went to this area in Iowa and wanted to use this map, I wouldn't be able to because that data is not downloaded. You can get into this scenario a couple different ways. One, if you get a new phone, your onX information, your account's going to transfer over. You don't have to pay again or anything like that. You'll just download the app on your new phone and log in with the same email address and password you've used on the previous one. Your waypoints will still be there. Your layers will still be there. But since the offline maps have to be downloaded to your phone's internal storage, that data doesn't transfer over automatically. So you do have to go in and re-download those maps. If you ever have to uninstall the onX app for some reason, it would be the same scenario. You'd have to go reinstall those maps. The nice thing is the app remembers the boundaries. It remembers where you had that data saved, so you don't have to go in and do the full placing of the box. But you do have to go in, tap that down arrow, that's going to start downloading that map for you. You can also do this intentionally. I just did it for my pronghorn area. Not going to go back there probably until next year. Hopefully I draw another tag. But I don't need those maps on my phone, and my phone storage is getting close to full. So to free up some space, let's see if I find this one that says Fort Peck North. Oops, wrong one. I'm going to tap on it. Let's say I don't need this one anymore. On the right-hand side, I'm going to tap those three dots. I have a few options here. I can update it if I want. I can edit it, change the name, or I can remove it from this device. So now it's got that red and white box. So now that those 369 megabytes are not taking up storage on this device. So if you're the kind of person that has a lot of maps and maybe you don't need them for a while, you can offload them and then just re-download them when you need them. All right, a couple more questions we get on offline maps. When you're outside of cell service, a big concern is saving battery life. So that's where offline maps are super helpful as well. Even if you're in an area with good cell service, I oftentimes will save an offline map. To save battery life best, we recommend putting your phone into airplane mode. So as long as you've got the offline maps downloaded, you're going to be able to see all the different land designations. You're going to be able to see the aerial imagery, the topography, the hunt districts, all that information. You're still going to be able to mark your location. You're going to be able to mark waypoints, which we'll get to how that works in a bit here. You're going to be able to see your location. You're going to be able to track yourself. You're going to be able to do just about everything you can do online. But your phone's not going to be trying to ping the cell tower to get service. That's the biggest drain on your phone battery typically, is if it's trying to ping a cell tower, trying to connect, that's going to run your battery down fast. If you put it into airplane mode, it's going to greatly extend the life of your phone battery. And then from there, you don't really have to do anything different. You don't have to like tell the app, hey, I want you to load this map and not that map. It's going to load up all of the offline maps that you have saved. So you're going to be able to see, doesn't matter where you are, if you cross the boundary from one to the other, it's seamless. You won't even notice it. So that's a question we get sometimes, is how do I tell it to load this map and that map? You don't have to worry about that. It's going to be able to load up any of the maps that you have saved. All right. So I know I went through that pretty fast. Again, if you do have questions, drop them in the Q&A box and we'll get to those. Let's talk about using waypoints and marking locations. I'm going to zoom in here. And where I'm going to go right now is to my Tools menu along the bottom of my screen. It's right in the center. So bottom center, looks kind of like a Swiss Army knife. If I tap on it, that opens up my Tools menu. Now, what we're going to focus on primarily are waypoints. Waypoints are most likely going to be your most used tool. If you've used a handheld GPS like a Garmin or a Magellan or something, you might be familiar with the concept of waypoints. It's just marking a spot on the map for future reference. So I will use this a lot of times when I park my truck, when I'm getting ready to go hunting. I want to be able to find my way back to the truck, right? In that case, let's pretend I'm right here. I got my blue dot. I'm going to tap the button that says Mark My Location. Now that puts a waypoint right where I am standing at that point. This is what I use primarily when I'm out in the field because I want to mark things that I am looking at, whether it be the truck so I can get back. Maybe I set up a duck blind or a deer stand. Mark that so that I can find it again. Maybe I see a buck rub or I flush a pheasant. I'll mark those waypoints, right? There's a saying that waypoints are free. It's kind of like fishing. If you've ever heard somebody say hook sets are free, mark waypoints on stuff. They're super useful later on. onX is kind of a system where the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. You can just use it for the basics, and that's great, but you're leaving a lot on the table, right? So I think waypoints are one of the most critical tools, at least for me in my hunting, especially in areas that I might not get to every year, where I'll have waypoints marked and say, oh yeah, I got into some grouse there a couple of years ago. Let's take a walk up here or something. But waypoints are also, you do have to put a little bit of work into them. So right now, this waypoint is an orange X. I strongly recommend customizing your waypoints. So to do that, I've got this one I've placed here. I'm going to tap on it. It brings up a menu with some information about it. Now the default name of this waypoint is my location, 10/23/24. It's got the timestamp there. 2 years from now, that's not going to mean anything to me. I'll know I was there, but what was I marking? Was it a buck rub? Was it a tree stand? Did I see a bear there? Is that where I stopped and sat and had lunch? I have no idea. So do this in the moment if you can. If you're marking a waypoint and you're on the way to intercept a sweet whitetail buck, maybe don't worry about it then. But 9 times out of 10, when I mark a waypoint, I can take a few seconds out of my hunt to put some information down, and that just pays dividends later on. So in the lower left-hand corner, I'm going to tap this edit button. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give my waypoint a name. Let's say this is where I parked the truck. So I'm just going to put park, because that's a parking area I might need later. Next, I'm going to change the waypoint type, or the icon of the waypoint. The standard X, I go through mine every once in a while, and if I have any just X's, I go and edit them or delete them, because it doesn't mean anything to me. If I tap the More button, that's going to give me, I think we have like 90 different options for waypoints here. So everything from different animals, cabin, rub, trail camera. I'm going to mark this as truck. You could also use parking area, whatever you want. I'm going to use the truck icon. Then I'm going to change the color. Colors to me are maybe the most powerful, especially when looking at things from a macro level. You can color code your waypoints to mean different things. Then you can tell at a glance at least some information about that waypoint, what you're looking at. I'm going to make this, I'll do a black one here, and then I'm going to hit save. So now you can kind of get a sense of, once you start doing this to your waypoints, how much easier it's going to be later on. I talked about changing colors. That's one way to organize waypoints that I think is super powerful. A couple different ways to do it. Personally, I'm a multi-species hunter, so I chase pretty much everything that they'll give me a license for. So I have a folder for upland game birds, one for waterfowl, deer, elk, bear, turkey, pronghorn, okay? And I will choose different colors for those different waypoints. So my upland bird might be blue, my bear might be brown, my elk might be yellow. And then when I'm zoomed out, I think on my personal account I have, it's like 1,500 waypoints or so. When I zoom out, they're all different colors. So I at least know, okay, these are my elk waypoints, these are my black bear waypoints, these are my turkey waypoints. And I can kind of get a sense of what I'm looking at there. Of course, I do write names on there. I do change the icon. So for like turkey, for example, I have roost trees marked where I know turkeys like to roost. I have the hen waypoint where I've seen some hens. I have the gobbler waypoint where I've seen gobblers, things like that. Other people at the office will do it by year, and they'll say this year, this is the color. So 2024 is yellow because 2023 was red and 2022 was green, and 2025 is going to be white or whatever. Whatever floats your boat. If I was, not blessed to live in Montana and hunt all the different species, I said that really weird. If I was a one species hunter, right? If all I cared about was waterfowl, and that's what I do. I don't care about deer. I don't care about upland. I would probably then use different colors to mark different pieces. I would use one color for my blinds. I would use one color for maybe boat accesses. I would use another color for fields where I have permission to goose hunt, so that you can tell things that way. Kind of tailor it to your specific hunting style. Again, no right or wrong way to do it. I guess the only wrong way would be to do nothing. You don't want to have a bunch of just orange X's with a timestamp on them, because next year, year after, you might not remember what you were marking there. So let's say you want to mark a waypoint where you are not currently located. I showed you how to do the mark my location. There's a couple other ways to mark waypoints at distant spots. So if I just go, I'm just going to go north of town here, get into some Forest Service. Let's say I want to climb up to this ridge. I'm going to go into Tools. I'm going to tap Add Waypoint. Now that's going to place a waypoint in the center of my screen. That might not be exactly where I want it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And if I just tap on the map, I'm just tapping around when I'm in this edit mode, that's how I can change the position of a waypoint. And you can do this if you've already got waypoints saved and you want to change them, you can do this at any time. You can edit the position of a waypoint. So I'm going to zoom in because I want to be exact. I want to get right to that spot. Great. I give it a name, Mountain Peak. I'm going to, let's say I want to get up there because I want a glass. Choose a glassing area icon, and I'm going to use blue. Awesome. So now I've got that waypoint there. If I don't want a waypoint anymore, I can also delete one. So I'll go back from the start. I've got this waypoint. Let's say I've climbed up there and it's not good glassing. I don't want to go back there. I'm going to tap on it, and you'll notice along the bottom of my screen there's a red button that says delete. You can either tap that or you can tap edit and tap delete from there. It'll ask you to confirm and delete, and that waypoint's gone. Couple other ways to mark waypoints on the map, and honestly what I do most of the time, let's say I want to check out this spot where these two creeks come together. I'm going to tap on that spot. So I've got that green dot on my map. Along the bottom of my screen, there's a button that says Add Waypoint. I can add a waypoint there. Now you should customize it. In the interest of time, I'm not going to customize every waypoint. And the final way to mark a waypoint is to do a long press. So if you hold your finger down on the screen for, I believe it's 2 seconds, a waypoint is going to show up there. Okay, so it's up to you how you want to do it. Most of the time I just tap on it to get that query card and then add a waypoint. A lot of people like this long press. If you accidentally do a long press, if you're just scrolling the map and you leave your finger too long in one spot, like I'm doing here, let's say I move in and I leave my finger there. Shoot, I didn't want that one. In the top left corner, you can just tap cancel. That'll get rid of it and it'll be gone and you can get back to scrolling the map there. All right, so there's more to talk about with waypoints, but that's a bit beyond the scope of a 101. So I want to jump over to the tracker. I'm going to get back to my location, and in the lower right-hand corner, there's a button that says Tracker. Now this is kind of what it sounds like. It allows you to track where you've been as you travel. So if I hit the Start button, you see my dot, my blue dot is now red. That means the tracker is running. And if I were moving instead of sitting in an office, you would see a light blue dashed line coming out from my dot as I moved. We call that a breadcrumb trail sometimes. So as you're driving or as you're walking, it's going to lay a track down everywhere that you went. Reason I do this a lot of times is just safety. I'm going to stop this because I'm not going anywhere. Just hit delete. But the reason to do this, there's a lot of reasons to do this. First and foremost for me is safety. I like to know where I've been. And yeah, I do have my waypoint of my truck, but I still like to have that path so I know, especially if I'm coming back out in the dark, I know where I walked is at least safe. I'm not going to get cliffed out. I'm not going to end up in a whole bunch of deadfall or walk into the middle of a super wet, bog or swampy area or something. I've at least got a path back out. One reason to mark a track. If you're lucky enough to get a shot on an animal, you might need to blood trail it. I will start the tracker usually from where I shot from, and walk up and look for first blood. And then hopefully I find it quickly, follow that blood trail. Hopefully it's pretty short and it leads to a dead animal. That doesn't always work out that way, right? Sometimes you do have to do a grid search. So you can at least see where you've been and then look at your track and say, oh, there's this big gap where I didn't walk through. Let's check there. And sometimes it is just kind of neat to track yourself and be able to say, oh man, I did 12 miles today and I did this much elevation. Sometimes I just track because I want to have those stats to see as well. I'll also do this when I'm setting deer stands so that I know my path in the dark, so that I don't necessarily have to use a flashlight. When getting into a deer stand or a duck blind, I can just kind of have my phone out and follow it that way. Also helpful if I'm sending a friend in there, because all of these markups, waypoints and tracks and the other markups, you can share these with a friend. So the tracker is helpful. I did this earlier this year. I shot an elk. I had a friend and his dad were coming in to help pack it out. I sent them my track in from that morning where I had hiked into this area from the truck. Sent them the truck waypoint so they knew where to park, and then they had the exact path to walk in, the path of least resistance to get in to where my elk was. Lucky enough that I had cell service, of course. If you don't have cell service, it's not going to work, but if you do, it's a great option. So speaking of sharing, how does that work? Let's say I want to share this truck waypoint. Say I'm hunting with my brother, and this is where we're going to meet up on Saturday. So I have this waypoint where we're going to park. I want him to meet me there. I tap on it. Down below, next to the edit button, there's a button that says share. I'm going to tap on that. And you have two options, share with a link or share nearby. Now, share nearby allows you to send markups like waypoints without cell service. So it does it via Bluetooth. If you've ever done an AirDrop from iPhone to iPhone, it's the same system. So it is platform specific. It only works iOS to iOS, so iPhone to iPhone, iPhone to iPad, or Google operating system, Google to Google. So it doesn't work if I have an iPhone and my brother has a Samsung, which I believe is what he actually has. This wouldn't work for us. And you do have to be close. So you do have to be within Bluetooth range of somebody. So why might you do this? This would be a case where if you're blood trailing and everybody runs a different track, you could all save that track and share that with each other to see where you've been. Shed hunters do the same thing. Maybe you want to share a distant waypoint with them and you're standing next to each other. You can do that share nearby. Most shares are still going to be the share with a link. So when you do this, if I hit next, it's going to bring up, kind of let me choose which messaging platform I want to use. This is an iPad that doesn't have a cell chip in it, so I'm not able to select text. That's the most common way. You can text, email, Slack, Facebook message, whatever you choose. 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to text it. You'll choose the text and you'll send it just like you send a regular text message. The recipient will, on their side, get a text message. It'll tell them that you have shared a waypoint with them. They will click on the link on their side. It'll open up their onX Hunt app and ask if they want to add that content to their map. They can say yes or no. And they don't have to have a paid membership for this. So if somebody does have a basic membership, you can still send them the waypoint. They'll be able to see it, but that's about it. But this is, again, helpful. I use the example of blood tracking. If you need help pulling a deer out, you need help packing out an elk, you can send a waypoint and then the cavalry knows where to find you. Also for safety, right? I do a lot of my hunting solo. If you have a loved one back at home that wants to know where you are, where you're going to be, you can send them a waypoint and say, this is where I plan to park. I'm going to hunt this area. If you don't hear from me by 9 o'clock, maybe call for help or something like that. So, utilize sharing as well. Maybe you want to just send all your tree stand locations to a buddy in your deer camp that might not know where you've set your ladder stands or something. You can send them all to him, say, hey, here you go. These are where the stands are this year. Again, a lot of different reasons for sharing as well. Last thing in the app before we jump over to the onX web map, I want to talk about the compass mode. So I'm going to delete this truck waypoint just to clear up the map a little bit. So I talked about how to find your location on the map. You tap that location button in the lower right-hand corner, centers the map on your location. If you tap that button again, now we're going to put you into kind of line of sight mode. You see my blue dot has a sight cone coming off of it, kind of that blue wedge. I'm going to pick up my tablet here. As I rotate it, the map rotates with me. So instead of north being oriented up, like most maps we're familiar with, now whatever direction the tablet or phone is facing is going to be up. So this is useful when you're traveling a lot of times, when you're walking down a trail, or, maybe don't do that if you're the driver in a car, but if you're a passenger and you're navigating, you can have this pulled up. You can then easily tell what is what. What's on the right side, what's on the left side. Hey, we got to take this fork, take the left fork in the road. You're looking out the window and you see a bunch of elk. You can easily tell, oh, that's public land. We can go after them. Oh, it's private. Maybe we need to try to ask for permission or something like that. So that's a question we get quite a bit, is how do I get the map to rotate with me? You just tap your location button twice. If I want to get out of it, I can tap that button again. It snaps me back to north being up. But if I go back into that line of sight mode, you might notice in the lower right-hand corner, a third button appeared. This one looks like a compass. It's got the needle there. If I tap on that, that's going to open up our compass mode. Now, compass mode is a sweet way for you to be able to drop distant waypoints at a known distance. So I've got this line emanating out from my dot. On the left-hand side, I have some yardage markers. As I zoom in and out, it's going to tell me how far each of those is. So if you want to get just like a quick rough measurement of something, how far away it is, you can use compass mode for that. But this really gets powerful once I tap on that button that looks like a rangefinder. So again, lower right-hand corner of the 4 buttons there, it's the top one. That's going to put us into the rangefinder mode. And now this is how I can place a waypoint on an exact spot that's far away from me. I used this last year. If you've been to this class before, you've heard this story. But I was mule deer hunting in eastern Montana. I saw a bedded buck. I knew I needed to get a little bit closer, so I stalked kind of as close as I felt comfortable, had a good shooting position, got down, had the gun set up and everything. I wasn't going to shoot him in his bed, didn't have a great shot. He was kind of facing away from me, but was just going to wait for him to stand. I had ranged him with my rangefinder at 270 yards. And I laid there for like an hour, so I had time to do this. I pointed my phone at the mule deer, so I can still rotate my phone here as I'm doing. Pointed it at the deer, and then all I'm doing is I'm taking my finger, I'm putting it on the screen, and I'm sliding it up. And you can slide it up and down to change the yardage. So I'm going to slide it all the way up to 270 yards. If you need to go farther, just slide it all the way up to the top, and it'll automatically zoom you out. If you need to get closer, zoom it to the bottom, and it'll zoom you back in. I'm going to move this to 270 yards. I'll zoom out a little bit. 270. Perfect. Obviously, we're in town here in Missoula. Use your imagination. Pretend we're in eastern Montana. I'm going to tap that waypoint button and hit done. Now I have a waypoint on the exact spot where that deer was bedded. Like I said, I laid there for like an hour and 20 minutes. Eventually he stood up. I shot him. He went over the backside of the ridge he was on. I watched the does he was with run away. He wasn't with them. So I felt pretty good. But once I climbed down from my shooting position, got down in some of those coulees and creek bottom country, if you've hunted enough, you know, once you start moving, the landscape changes. I grew up hunting, like I said, northern Minnesota. There's a lot of thick aspens, so we call them popples there, and hazelbrush and willows. You climb down from your tree stand, it's a totally different view. It can be hard to tell exactly where that deer was standing for you to go start blood trailing it. So you can mark a waypoint. In that instance, I was able to walk right to that deer's bed, walked a few more steps, looked over the edge, he was laying there dead. But if it hadn't been that easy, if my shot hadn't been that good, at least I had a spot to start blood trailing from. This can also be used to plan a stock. If you're archery hunting 270 yards, like that's where the hunt begins, right? You need to knock off 230 yards if you have like a 40-yard, shooting range. So you can still mark where that deer is standing, where that elk is standing, and then you have a waypoint, you have a landmark for planning your stock, because maybe you have to drop out of sight, maybe you have to come around another way. At least you have that reference point to keep coming back to there. And it's a bit beyond the scope of a 101, but we do integrate with some range finding companies. So Loophole and Sig Sauer are compatible. They'll integrate with the onX Hunt app. So you do have to utilize their apps. And I did a class on this earlier this summer. So if you're interested, if you have a Sig Sauer rangefinder that has the BDX system that talks with their app, or the Loophole, it's the RX5000. It's a pretty new rangefinder they came out with, I think, this spring. But you can use those to range a distant target and have it send a waypoint to onX. Again, I probably shouldn't have brought it up. It's more of a 201 type of thing, but it is a pretty sweet tool. And again, go to our onX Hunt YouTube channel. I did a half-hour, 45-minute class all about that earlier this summer. You can check that out. All right, I'm going to stop sharing on my tablet, and I'm going to bring us over to the onX web map here. So the onX web map is another underutilized tool. A lot of people don't know that we have it. This comes free with your membership. It's not an extra charge or anything. All you have to do is go to our website, which is onxmaps.com. There'll be a login button in the upper right-hand corner. Same email address and password you use on your mobile device will log you in here. And this syncs up with your mobile device. So any waypoints that you mark on your phone, when you log in on your computer, those waypoints will be showing for you, and vice versa. So I do a lot of scouting on my computer here. So like I use the example of my pronghorn hunt, eastern Montana. I wasn't able to do boots on the ground scouting because it was a 7-hour drive, but I marked a lot of different areas that I wanted to drive to and check out. Marked some walk-in areas, I marked some public, marked areas where there was maybe good crop fields near public, things like that. Then when I pull it up on my phone, all those waypoints are there. So a couple things I wanted to show you on the web map. The first one is our different base map and imagery options. So I'm going to move just to an area without a lot of noise, get to a forested area here. And this information is also available on your mobile device if you're following along. In the lower right-hand corner, if you can see my cursor, there's a button here that says HYB2D. Yours might say SAT or TOPO. Those are the different base map options for you. So I'm going to start by clicking on the satellite base map here. This should be familiar to a lot of folks. It's your basic satellite imagery, similar to like a Google Earth, for example. Shows you the vegetation, shows you the terrain there. You can learn a lot of info from that. If you want to see what the actual land looks like, where the undulations are, how steep it is, you can click over to the topo map. So as I zoom out, this is kind of like that old school paper map that a lot of us are familiar with, where I can see, where the slopes are, what's north facing, what's south facing, where the mountain peaks are, how that elevation changes. If I zoom in a bit, you can see the major topo lines in this area. They're 200 feet, so 480 or 4,800 feet, 5,000, 5,200, 54. So then these are your minor topo lines. It's going to be a little bit different if you're in Florida, for example. Florida doesn't quite have the elevation change we have in Montana, so these numbers will be, it won't be 200 feet between major topo line here. What I think is the most useful base map is the hybrid. So it gives me the best of satellite and topo together. This is what I use 80 to 90% of the time. As I zoom in, I can still see the topo lines. I can still get a sense of how the land changes elevation, but I can still see the vegetation. I can still see that satellite imagery. So that to me is the most useful in most cases. There are times when I'm scouting for spring bear and I'm just looking for south-facing slopes that I think I can glass. I can look and say, this is all south-facing. So what I will do in those instances, or another example might be looking for north-facing slopes for elk during archery season. Let's say I'm looking south-facing here. Could be good late season rifle elk hunting, could be good spring bear hunting, because that's the area where the snow burns off first. I might look at this area and say, this looks pretty good. I've got some water, south-facing slope. Then I might kick it over to the hybrid and look at the vegetation. Now this is really looking pretty good because it's pretty open. If this was all thick trees, I'm going to cross it off because I'm not going to be able to see a bear in there. There might be bears in there, but they're going to be hard to hunt. So that's when I will toggle between the two. The topo is great if you're really looking for a certain aspect, or if you're looking for, say a benchy area. Elk don't like to bed where it's really steep. Where the lines get farther apart, it's flatter. That might be a good area there. Some of this other stuff's pretty steep. They get a little bit farther apart on this ridge here. This might be interesting to me. Something like this, not so much. A little bit too steep. So those are your different base map options. I'm going to click back to satellite imagery, and I want to talk about, if you're an elite member, there's a couple of additional imagery options for you. So one is going to be our recent imagery. I'm just going to go down where I know there's some higher elevation so we can maybe see some snow. So right now in this area, I have our standard satellite imagery turned on. If I click on recent imagery, because I have an elite membership, I'm able to see imagery that's taken every 2 weeks. That's our update cadence for this. Now there is a trade-off. Recent imagery is not meant to replace the standard base map imagery. It's meant to be another tool in the toolkit. Because it's updated so fast, it's not as crisp of resolution. Okay, that's kind of the give and take there. It's updated more frequently, not as high resolution. But you can scroll backwards in time if you want. We can go back by 2-week increments. And if I get back to the spring here, there we see some snow starting to pop up, right? So in the Mountain West here, this might be useful for checking snow levels, either in the spring to see if it's melted enough where you can get in there, or this time of year to see, hey, where's the snow level at? Can I actually hike up in there or drive my truck up into this area, or is there too much snow? Midwest, I would use this to check the crops. Pheasant hunting is awful tough when all the corn's still standing. I can maybe get a sense, now 2 weeks, a lot can change in 2 weeks, of course, but I can maybe get a sense of, well, it looks like, they were pulling corn out during this 2-week period, September 30th to October 14th. We're the 23rd now, there's going to be even more corn pulled out. You can use it to check water levels for waterfowl hunting. Use it to check, hey, have the leaves fallen in this area? Things like that. So again, not meant to replace our regular imagery, meant to be another tool to use. And again, that one is only for, you do have to have the elite membership. Another imagery option, again, you do have to have elite, is our leaf off imagery. So if I go to Wisconsin here and zoom in, as I toggle this on and off, you can see the change there. So leaf off imagery is just imagery that's taken after the leaves have fallen, late fall into winter. This was a request from a lot of customers saying, man, the imagery looks like it was taken in June. I'd love to have an image that was taken in November when I'm hunting. So this is our kind of way to solve that problem. Now, it's not available in every state. If I scroll over to Minnesota, for example, oops, didn't mean to do that. You'll see we don't have leaf-off imagery in Minnesota. I believe it's only 15 states right now, all of them east of the Rockies. It is something we are hoping to add to. We want to add more states to it. We are just kind of limited on the states that have a good leaf-off imagery data set. Not every state has good quality fall, winter imagery. So it's not like we're just saying, we don't care about Minnesota. It's just we haven't been able to locate good imagery yet. So we will keep adding to this. If your state doesn't have it, we're working to get it. And like I said, we're prioritizing the eastern half of the country, primarily because that's where the deciduous forest is, primarily. In western Montana, would I take leaf-off imagery? Sure. Is it going to make that big of a difference for me hunting when I'm up in the lodge poles and dug firs? Probably not going to see much of a change, right? So I'm going to turn this back off. And last thing before we get to the giveaway and the Q&A is our search. So a question we do get a fair bit is, can I mark a waypoint from coordinates? Yes, you can. On the web map here in the upper left-hand corner is my search bar. If you're doing this on a mobile device, it's in the upper right-hand corner, and it looks like a magnifying glass. So if you tap on that or on a web map, click here. I can search for location or private land. If I'm using GPS coordinates, I'm going to need location selected. When typing in coordinates, we recommend you use the decimal format. That's what works best for search. If you have it in degrees, minutes, and seconds, or UTM or something else, use an online converter. There's a whole bunch of free converters. Just Google, or whatever search engine you use, GPS coordinate converter or something. A bunch of them will pop up. So I'm just going to make up a fake one here. My first one, 47.000. The more decimals you can give it, the more exact it's going to be. Your first number is going to be between 0 and 90. It shouldn't be negative. If it's negative, that'll put you in the southern hemisphere. You don't need a comma to separate your your latitude and longitude. Your second coordinate is going to be a negative. Okay, we're doing longitude here, so this is east-west. If you don't put a negative in, it's going to put you in the eastern hemisphere, so you're going to end up in Europe or Africa or Asia or somewhere. If you're looking for a spot in North America, that's not helpful. You need that minus sign before. And I'm just going to go 105.000, just a random spot here. I'm going to click on this option that shows up. That's going to bring me to that spot. And it places a little icon in the center of my screen on those coordinates. If I want to mark a waypoint, I'm going to go over to my menu here. It tells me private lands, all this information. I'm going to click the Add Waypoint button and hit Save. And now I have a waypoint on those coordinates. So if you have GPS coordinates from another program or another book or something, you want to have them in onX, you can utilize the search, type them in, and mark a waypoint. There's other stuff you can search for in here though. Location, I could search for a town, a mountain peak. I could search for Yellowstone National Park if I wanted. It's going to give me a bunch of different options. I'll click that first one, and here we are in Yellowstone. You can search for lakes, all kinds of different stuff in there. You can also search for a private landowner. So I'm going to get my map back to Missoula. And let's say there's somebody who I know they own some land, but I want to see where it is. I can just type in, I'm just going to go John Smith, generic name. And down below, I've got, it's going to show you up to 50 results for John Smith. Of course, we're getting a lot of options because that's a common name. But you'll notice they are near me. At least the top ones are all Missoula County, Ravalli County, Granite County, Mineral County. So the search results are prioritized based on where your map is. So if you're looking for a John Smith in Maryland, move the map to Maryland. Get as close as you can. If you have a general idea of where they live, even within, if I know they're in Montana, but I know they're, maybe they're up in northeastern Montana. Maybe they're around Scobie or Plentywood. Move my map there and then do a search. It's going to prioritize John Smiths that are in that area. Okay, so get as close as you can. And the more info you can give the search, the better. If I know John Smith's middle initial, maybe it's John R. Smith. If the land is under John and his spouse, I would type in John and Jane Smith if I know the name of both landowners or something like that. So the more information you can give the search, the better. To find these, I'm just clicking on the different options here. That's not it. Maybe it's this one in Idaho. That's not it. Maybe it's this one. You can just keep clicking on them until you find the right one. All right. So I think that pretty much does it for the presentation side. I'm going to stop sharing and bring up my slides here because I want to do the giveaway and talk about some other stuff before we wrap up. So I'm going to ask one of our wonderful customer support folks to drop the giveaway link in the chat. So we're giving away 10 of these onX Hunt Blaze Orange hats. We got a lot of rifle deer season, firearm deer seasons kicking off. We got small game going, pheasant and grouse. So hopefully some folks can make use of an orange hat. Giveaway does end at midnight tonight. So if you are watching this on the recording on the YouTube channel and it's not October 23rd, sorry, the giveaway has closed, but we do these on just about every class. So sign up for a future one and get entered to win some stuff. We have heard from people in previous classes that sometimes your phone won't let you click on the link. You might have to copy and paste it into a browser, or, if you got a scratch pad, write down this link, this HTTPS bit.ly/101 October. Write that down and then type it in, and you'll get entered to win that. I will draw the winners tomorrow morning. So I will shoot an email to the 10 lucky winners sometime tomorrow morning. We're in Montana time, and then we'll get the hats sent out to you as well. If you don't currently have an onX membership, we've got a discount offer for you. So if you don't currently have a premium or elite membership, you can use the promo code APP101. That's going to save you 30% on your first year. You can go to this website listed out here in orange, or just go to our website. You cannot use a promo code on the Google Play or the Apple App Store. They don't accept promo codes. They will charge you full price. So if you want to save some money on that first year, you've got to go to onxmaps.com, go to our website. If you have any questions on that or any trouble, you can always email us. Our customer support email is help@onxmaps.com. Our folks there will be more than happy to help you get that promo code applied and get you taken care of there. We talked about a lot of information today. We skimmed over the top of some of it just because we had to with time. If you want to learn more, again, our website is a great resource. There's a lot of tutorials on there. Our YouTube channel, if you go to YouTube and type in onX Hunt, you'll see us there. Not just the master classes, but we have a lot of more short form demos and tips and trick type videos on there. So check those out. I mentioned our customer support center. I'm biased, but they are second to none, not just in the hunting industry, but among customer support everywhere. US-based crew of a lot of folks. If you send us an email, we're going to get back to you generally within 24 business hours. So if you email us on Monday evening, sometime Tuesday, you can expect a response from us. So let us know if you have any questions or something you'd like to learn more about. Then, of course, future onX Hunt Masterclasses. We are kind of taking a little bit of a break in November. I'm going to be out deer hunting, as will a lot of other folks at the office, deer, elk, you name it. But we are doing an upland bird hunting, kind of an office hours, ask me anything type class with Tyler Webster. If you're an upland bird hunter, you might have heard of him. Check that one out in November. That's in a couple weeks. And then we do these one-on-ones every month. So if you want to just watch it again, or you have a friend that could benefit from this, point them in our direction. You can check our current schedule on the website listed there. You can also Google onX Hunt Masterclasses. We should be one of the first one that pops up. We try to get them updated, and we try to have them about a month out. So you'll have the next kind of month schedule as we get them listed up there. All right, let's see if we have any questions. The crew has passed along to me. Let me pull that up. Someone asked, where did you grow up in Minnesota? I grew up just south of the town of St. Cloud, Minnesota, so central part of the state. Someone asking the go offline button for offline maps. Good question. So the go offline button is if you're in an area with kind of marginal cell service or no cell service, you can tap that go offline button and that will put the app into offline mode. If you go into airplane mode, like I discussed earlier, it will automatically do it for you. But maybe you don't want to go into airplane mode because you still want to be able to receive text messages or something. You can tap that go offline button. That will tell the app to stop trying to ping the cell network to pull in map information. It will then tell it, nope, load up those offline maps. That's what I want you to do right now. So either way you can do it. Again, like I said, personally, most of the time I'm using airplane mode, but if I'm in an area where I might have some cell service, I still want to be able to get a text or a call, you can tap that go offline button to utilize your offline maps. All right, we had a question on the acorn producing oaks layer. So again, this is a bit beyond a 101. I actually did a master class, I think it was last week, on our tree and crop layers. But the acorn producing oaks is going to be in your trees, crops, and soil layer. And what that is going to show you is you can choose, it'll show you white oaks, red oaks, mixed oaks. You can have it show you one of those or all three of those. And it'll tell you where there are oak trees capable of producing acorns. There's no way for us to know if a specific tree is producing acorns at a given time. So you do have to be an outdoors person and go out and do some scouting. Oak trees don't produce a bumper crop every year, but these are trees that are mature enough to produce acorns. Again, they might not do it every year. Some trees, it might be on a kind of a schedule of every other year, every 3 years or something, they really produce a lot. But that's what the acorn producing oaks layer, it tells you in that area, oaks are the most prevalent tree. So you'll see the coloration on the map. There'll be these little boxes showing you oak trees. There might be maples in there, there might be pine trees, but oaks are the dominant in that area. They're the most prevalent. Let's see, for Montana block management units, do you include the map and information that would be found at the sign-in box, i.e. a picture of their map / info for that particular block management unit? So we do have the parking areas in there. You'll see a green triangle on the map. You might have to zoom in a little bit for those to show. That's going to tell you where like the parking area and sign-in boxes are. If you click on query the map like I showed earlier, and click on it, and then in the menu I talked about where there was that little where it said area info, you can click visit website. That will take you to Fish, Wildlife and Parks website where it will show you that PDF like you would get in the sign-in box. There it will have the map for you, and it will have the restrictions and the different species information. So it's not directly in the app. You do have to click that button to kick you over to Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks website, but you can get there directly from the app. I do it all the time. It's pretty slick. All right. That's all the questions I have. We are right at 90 minutes. I swear every month I'm gonna try to make this a little bit shorter, and then I don't. So thanks to everybody for sticking with us on this one. Hope to see you again on a future class. Again, if you have questions, shoot us an email, let us know. And man, it is the best time of year, so I hope everybody's able to get outside. Maybe your season isn't open. Hopefully it's coming up soon. Hope everybody has a safe and successful year, and hope to see you on the next Master.